are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. While we wait for our guest to arrive, let me just share a little bit of breaking news. ABC News is reporting that Peabo Bryson, the singer behind Beauty and the Beast and more, has died at the age of 75. The legendary singer and songwriter Peabo Bryson has died at the age of 75. The Grammy Award winner, known for his hit songs and duets, including Beauty and the Beast, A Whole New World, and several R&B classics, died today, according to a statement from his family. This is a developing story, and we'll continue to track it, but our hearts go out to the family of Peabo Bryson, the fans of Peabo Bryson. I was a kid when Beauty and the Beast came out. I was a kid when, my parents were grooving to a lot of Peabo Bryson songs. And so sad to see that he has passed away at the age of 75. I now want to transition to our guest. I'm really delighted to welcome Linda Sarsour to A More Perfect Union. This is... let me just say this. I'm really glad to be joined by Linda because she's one of the most recognized civil rights activists and movement leaders in the country. Her work has centered multiracial democracy, civic participation, and social justice for years. And she's part of a remarkable coalition of voices that we are lifting up here on A More Perfect Union as we count down to the nation's 250th anniversary. Voices who are asking not just where we've been, but where we're going. Linda, welcome to A More Perfect Union. Welcome.
I can't hear you.
Oh, well, that's no good. We're going to work on that. While we work on that, let me just say that there are a lot of folks that are commemorating, celebrating, recognizing the 250th anniversary of America. And there are a lot of stories out there about who we are. And there are narratives and counter narratives out there. And we want to make sure that we're uplifting the voices, particularly of leaders on the front lines, to not just do a look back, but to do a look forward. One of the things that I have said on air and off is that, it seems to me that we need to shift our mindset from being more nostalgic to a more of a founder's mindset. Because it seems to me that we are all a part of founding sort of a new America. We are all a part of developing some radical imagination as to who we still can be, even in the face of some pretty significant rollbacks of our rights, rollbacks of certain norms that maybe we took for granted. And I'm really looking forward to digging into this conversation with Linda as soon as she gives me the thumbs up that she can hear me. All right. She can hear me. Well, again, Linda, welcome to A More Perfect Union, and thank you for your work and your witness.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Linda, I want to start with the big question, because you've been organizing and fighting for justice for a long time. And as we approach the 250th anniversary of this country, America at 250, what does that milestone mean to you? And what does it mean for communities that have historically been left out of the founding narrative? Important questions that need answers and that have answers. We're having a little bit of a technical challenge connecting to Linda, but we are going to figure it out in due order, in due time. There's Linda right there. She's going to give me the thumbs up if she can hear me. All right. Linda, did you need me to repeat the question?
No, I got it. And I don't listen. Today is the technical difficulties day because that always happens, and that's cool. I think it's important to remind folks that there was going to be a 250th commemoration with or without us as a movement, and actually, regardless of who was going to be president of the United States of America, I think it's important for us to intervene in this moment as a movement on this commemoration. I mean, there has been a lot that has happened in the last 250 years. A lot of stories that should be told that won't be told. A lot of communities that will be erased. And our job is to ensure that all people get to see their reflection in this last 250 years. And that also means not just the pain and suffering and trauma that many marginalized people have experienced, including Indigenous, Black folks, immigrants, and others, but also the triumphs and the victories. We come from many peoples that have sacrificed and have, because of the sacrifices they've made, we have come this far 250 years later. And I want to make sure that too is not taken away from the story of the 250 years that again is going to be commemorated with or without us. And we decided that we're going to be a part of it.
Yeah. And you're part of this coalition that includes Next 250, Get Free Together, Youth 250, and partners from the Reparations Narrative Lab. Tell us about the coalition and the kind of work that y'all are doing to shape the next 250, not just celebrate some of the advances of the past 250, but let's talk about what you're doing to shape the next 250.
I think this coalition that you mentioned, Doctor, is a reflection of what we always have to do as a movement, and that is to coordinate, to collaborate, right, to leverage each other's resources, relationships, and to really come out in a powerful, united force. We found ourselves in a place where we all aligned. We all supported the principles and values. We aligned on principles and values. So we brought this coalition together. The Next 250 is the Washington, D.C. flagship event for All of Us 250, which is part of the Get Free movement. Reclamation Day is being led by an incredible coalition led by Youth 250 and Bliss Collective, friends of ours who are also a part of the Next 250. So it's just beautiful to see our movement coming together. And we've been organizing together, bringing our resources, our talents, our relationships. And I think we're going to have an incredible, commemoration. Again, you talked about this generation and about us just coming together in this moment. And I keep reminding people that we're the first generation in American history that has to tell a younger generation than us that they have less rights. That has never happened in American history, because even with all the pain and trauma and suffering of the last 250 years, there has been some sort of incremental progress, right? We have gained things like voting rights. We gained, things like reproductive health care and access to reproductive health care. We've seen wins in the Supreme Court. And now we're watching that all roll back on the watches of our generation. So I think for us, this commemoration is about the next 250. What are we declaring? What are we committing to? And how are we walking into the next 250 years? I think we're coming here with an intention to make sure people that understand that our generation is also determined. We are committed. We understand the reality that we're in, and we're still willing to continue the fights that we've been on.
Linda, today is primary day here in California and a number of states across the country. And there's a very real anxiety in a lot of communities about what democracy even looks like right now. You've been doing civic participation work for years. What do you say to people who are feeling like their vote doesn't matter or like the system has already decided the outcome? Some of which who might be listening to us right now while there are several hours left until when the polls close.
That's right. I'm also, as you can see behind me, this is Princeton University. I'm actually in New Jersey because there is also a primary election day here in New Jersey. So we're all outside. I tell people all the time, never allow anyone to tell you that your vote doesn't matter, that your participation in democracy doesn't matter. Because if it didn't matter, then there wouldn't be people that wake up every single day trying to figure out how to strip voting rights away from Black folks, from poor folks, from marginalized people all across this country. They know it matters. And that is why every day that they're pushing these gerrymandered maps, that's why they are pushing voter suppression legislation, not only across the country, but also trying to pass it on a federal level. So my resistance to that is that I'm going to the polls and remembering that when you're going to the polls, this is not about personalities. This is not about who you like. This is not about who you're going to, go to dinner with, right? This is about voting for two things. Either you're voting for candidates that align with your values and principles, and oftentimes those people are from our communities and they are on the ballot. That's number one. Or harm reduction, right? I go to the polls. I don't vote for myself. I vote for the most harmed and marginalized people in my community, in the communities that I grew up in. So I understand that if my vote can be harm mitigation, that it could be harm reduction, that is worth it. If one less person getting kidnapped by ICE, one less person getting shot by the cops, one less person in my community getting evicted, that for me is worth my vote, even if the people that are running are not 100% aligned with my values and principles.
Yeah, that harm reduction piece is critically important. And one of the things I've been saying to folks is that it's quite possible that with all of the funny business that's taking place at the hands of Republican-controlled state legislatures who are redrawing the maps in favor of Republican candidates, my sense is that they're going to overplay their hand, and MAGA candidates may not be as competitive as blue dog Democrats. Talk to us about if, in fact, 2026 yields sort of the largest class of blue dog Democrats that we have seen in a long time. How does that impact sort of the agenda and the work of progressives, or how should it impact the work and the agenda of progressives across the country?
This is a complex conversation to have, Doctor, because I don't want to be one of those people that says vote blue no matter who, because I do actually think it matters who. In fact, we've watched in New Jersey, Governor Sherrill, when it comes to what's happening at Delaney Hall, which is a detention center where protesters are being attacked, where there are hunger strikers that are being punished inside the detention center, and her lackluster response on Delaney Hall. We watched Spanberger in Virginia, who's a Democratic governor there, who literally turned her back on union workers and on and bargaining and supporting union contracts. So, but I also want to say that sometimes we have a problem as progressives where we sometimes see a class of people running, and the person that we know will be the best for our community is someone we say, oh, they don't have a shot. I don't think this person can actually win. Of course they can. If you support them, if you mobilize, if you organize, if you talk to people at the doors, if you introduce them to folks, if you do the actual groundwork that is consistent between elections, anybody can win. If Donald Trump could be the president of the United States of America, then yes, I can elect a young, progressive Black woman in probably any city in America if we really did the work and really focused our energies where they belong. Oftentimes, we don't believe in ourselves, and we end up succumbing these races or conceding these races to mainstream Democrats who don't always align with us on every issue. But at the end of the day, if I had a choice in some races where I know someone supports healthcare, where someone supports union organizing, where someone supports workers, where someone supports immigrants, even if I may not agree with them on other issues, I may then engage in a harm reduction vote so that I can keep people who are exclusionary, who are working against all of those different communities I mentioned out of office. So sometimes you just have to have, people have to come to the table with what I believe to be a solidarity vote. My vote is a solidarity vote. I have a lot of us, some of us have the privilege of not voting or voting whatever way we want and not really having to feel much of the consequences that the most poor working class people in this country have to endure. So I always go to the polls with other people on my heart, with my family on my mind, with my neighbors on my mind.
When we come forward, I want to pick up that thread and want to lean into your viewpoint on the state of our solidarity politics. When we come forward, we'll also talk about some of the developments in these congressional races that are turning heads across the country. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward with Linda Sarsour. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, and really delighted to be in conversation with Linda Sarsour. Linda is not new to this. She's true to this. She has been a movement leader for some time. When I think of the Women's March, when I think of some of the work related to the No Kings protests, among so many others, I know that she stands shoulder to shoulder with so many incredible leaders on the front lines. For the folks out there that are saying, hey, where's the next generation of leaders? Where are they at? Linda, raise your hand and tell them that you're in New Jersey today. But you'll be wherever they need you to be.
Listen, which might hopefully help us get to a more perfect union today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so one of the things that you brought up before the break, you were talking about sort of solidarity. And I just came back from spending a week on the ground in Cuba, bearing witness to this American-made humanitarian crisis. Make no mistake about it. And we met with a number of government officials, but we also met with civil society folks and, real people on the ground, to get as balanced of a sense as we can as to what's going on. And one of the lingering thoughts I've had since coming back from Cuba is around our solidarity politics. And one of the questions I've been asking of a lot of leaders like yourself is, what is the state of our solidarity politics, and what kind of solidarity politic are we going to need in order to champion the issues that matter most the next 250 years?
Absolutely. I think one of the most important things is that there are moments where our movement has played what we call Olympics or oppression Olympics, right? Who's hurt more? And I think sometimes we have to understand that there are times where I'm going to go outside, doctor, where it's not about me. It has nothing to do with me. I'm not the one directly impacted by the issue. It doesn't affect me in any way. And my solidarity is not conditional, right? It's like, I want to show up for you because you deserve for me to show up for you, because you deserve my fight, not because I also expect you to come fight for me. And I think oftentimes our movements have been transactional. We haven't built those deep relationships. I remember the big conversation during 2024 where a lot of people were talking about the election, and there were a lot of people in our country who were people who were connected to folks that they had lost during a genocide in Gaza. I mean, we watched our families get slaughtered, like literally, like they were worthless, like the little babies meant nothing to anybody in the world. And on top of that, it was my taxpayer dollars that were paying for the slaughter of my own people. And there were many in our movements who said, well, you got to put that to the side because now we have an election to win. And it was hard. How do you say to someone, how do I go knock on the doors of Palestinian Americans and Arab Americans and tell them, put the slaughter of children to the side that you paid for with your taxpayer dollars, and let's go vote for a party that is literally supporting the very regime that is actually slaughtering our family members. This is not a hypothetical or theoretical. We watch the bloodshed on our phones 24 hours a day. So I tell people all the time that solidarity is also about understanding. It's about being able to hear people's stories, listen deeply to people's pain and trauma. And then you may understand why people are making the types of decisions that we may not agree with. When I think about this upcoming election, I always say to people, how is it possible that we want to save our democracy with the very leaders who are supporting an apartheid regime with our taxpayer dollars across the world? If you can't say genocide, if you can't look at the mass slaughter of people and call it a genocide, then how are you going to fight for my health care? How are you going to fight for good public education? How are you going to fight for access for transportation and for good jobs? I don't believe that. I believe that the basic humanity that we people demonstrate in politics are the exact people that we need to send. If you can see a Palestinian child all the way in Palestine, or see a child in Cuba and say those children deserve food, they deserve access to high quality healthcare, the children of Palestine deserve to be free and play on their beaches without worrying about American bombs dropping on them, that's the leadership that we need. And guess what? We will all benefit from that leadership. Anyone who's good on an issue like Palestine and believes that the Palestinian people deserve freedom, deserve self-determination, guess what? They're also good on healthcare. They're also good on public education. They're good on immigration and immigrant rights. They're good on all progressive issues. So this is not because we want people, for example, to only care about this, quote, one issue. This one issue is intersectional in the sense that if we have money for wars, we spend close to $2 billion a day on a war with Iran. You know what we could do with $2 billion a day in Chicago, $2 billion a day in New York City, imagine what you could do with $2 billion a day in Birmingham, Alabama. So I want people to understand that solidarity is about understanding people's grief, helping people to see that you understand their pain, and then wanting to work together to build enough power so that we can stop the atrocities that are happening abroad, but also what's happening here in our own country. And I always say to people, I think solidarity is me fighting for you when you're not in the room. I want someone to fight for me when I'm not there, and to invoke my people's name when they are not in the room, because oftentimes some of us are not in the rooms. So we can't even fight and advocate for ourselves, but we need our people, our movement leaders to say, these people are not here, but I'm going to speak up for them because they are not in this room. So solidarity for me is a verb. It's not a noun. It's like, if solidarity doesn't have action, if you're not willing to risk something for your solidarity, then it's not real solidarity. And I think our movements at points, we have struggled with real solidarity, with true, deep, genuine solidarity. Lastly, I'll tell you, in 2020 during COVID, as you remember, it was the horrific murder of George Floyd. But before there was a George Floyd, there was a Breonna Taylor in March of 2020, and a lot of my colleagues and I, as you know, we got up from New York City and we moved to Louisville, Kentucky. I didn't know Breonna Taylor. I never met the young woman. I knew an injustice happened, and I was not about to let this country just act like a Black woman did not just get shot and killed in the privacy of her own home and just let that slide. I didn't go to Louisville, Kentucky expecting anyone from Louisville to stand up for Palestinians. I never put a condition on the table and said, I only will come if you make these, declarations. But you know what happened, doctor? During genocide, this was 2000. Genocide was 2023, 2024. The people of Louisville would send me photos of themselves organizing protests against genocide because they remembered the solidarity of Palestinians who came to Louisville, Kentucky to fight for Breonna, to stand shoulder to shoulder, to get tear gassed by the Louisville Metro Police Department, to get arrested and get felons. I got a felony charge in Louisville, Kentucky fighting for Breonna. And I was proud of that. And I wanted to do that. And so again, solidarity is not transactional. It's deep. It allows you to learn about people's story. It's about you asking me, why are you here? What interest do you have to be here to stand, for example, for a Breonna Taylor? And for me to say it's my most basic part of my humanity that tells me that being here is the right thing to do.
Linda, I want to bring up a story that I think perfectly illustrates what you've been talking about. Dr. Adam Hamaway, he's an Army doctor who served in Gaza. He came back home and now leading a New Jersey congressional race. You know a little bit about this, being that you're in New Jersey right now. The Guardian has been covering the story. When you see someone like that, a doctor, a veteran, a person who's shaped by that experience, stepping into the electoral arena, what does that signal to you about who's deciding to fight for change and how?
Dr. Adam Hamaway has probably one of the best resumes I've ever seen. When he was a resident doctor, he was one of the first people to run down to the Twin Towers. He was a 9/11 responder as a young resident doctor to save people's lives. As you said, he was an Army surgeon. So he was someone who not only was serving soldiers, but he was serving, enemy combatants. He was serving Iraqi civilians. He didn't ask people what their religion was. He didn't ask them what side they were on. He's a doctor to save lives, all lives of people. He's also been on missions to Bosnia, to African countries, to Gaza. And during the most recent genocide, when he was in Gaza, he got stuck in Gaza and they wouldn't even allow some of these foreign doctors to come out. And at one point, they came to him and said, "Oh, you got approval. Time for you to go." And he said, "No, I'm not leaving my colleagues in here. I'm going to go right back into this hospital knowing that I could probably get bombed and killed, but I'm not leaving till my colleagues also get approval." This is a man who has risked his life to save people's lives. He understands the faults of healthcare at a fundamental level as a doctor in the United States. He's seen people that would not be able to get care in this country die in this country because they couldn't have something as basic as healthcare in the richest nation on earth. He is someone who understands the plight of Muslims in America, right? He understands what's happening in places like Gaza because he went there. He operated on people who didn't have limbs. Like he saw the impact of US bombs on the bodies of human beings in Gaza. So why wouldn't we want a leader like him? Why wouldn't we want someone who's going to fight for healthcare, who's going to fight to stop weapons to countries like apartheid Israel? This is the actual kind of leader. And one of the most important things about him, he's not a politician. People might say, "Oh, look at Dr. Hamaway. You got these politicians out here with the charisma. They got that mic in their hand." This is a guy who never wanted to be a politician. And in fact, is the same reason why we want him to go to Congress, because he is not a typical politician. He's a public servant, and he has served us for the last almost 27 years in different ways. And I hope that the people of New Jersey choose him to serve them in Congress today on this New Jersey primary day.
Linda, in our remaining moments with you, I want to ask you about Secretary Mullen of the Department of Homeland Security. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see this today, but Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, who of Oklahoma, who's now the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, was in a hearing today, and he was asked a very simple question, very important question, I would say. Will he commit to following court orders when it comes to the Department of Homeland Security? Well, he refused to answer. Not no, not yes. He refused to commit. And when asked whether he would follow the law, the courts, the constitutional order, and, that has sat with me. It might be sitting with you now that he is the Secretary of Department of Homeland Security. Talk to us about what's keeping you up late at night when it comes to not just the way that ICE has been operating without restraint, but the Department of Homeland Security under Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen. What's keeping you up late at night related to DHS?
DHS, as you know, Department of Homeland Security was created back in 2003, and that's how ICE was born. And that's why when people say abolish ICE, why not? I mean, it's only been around since 2003. We lived in a world in this country where there was no ICE. And what's very important, what keeps me up at night, is the Department of Homeland Security is basically the agency that has basically all of the national law enforcement agencies are under the Department of Homeland Security. So DHS is not just ICE, it's CBP. It's also the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI. So when you have the big boss saying that he's not going to either commit to or not commit to following court orders, that is something that should really shake Americans all across the country. That basically says to him that he's not committing to following the Constitution, that he's willing to allow the agencies that are under his purview to basically violate the civil rights of Americans, which they already have been doing. As you know, ICE has kidnapped Americans and giving them sometimes a couple of days later till they figure out they're American citizens and kind of let them free. They are picking up people without warrants, right? They are indicting what they call to be like political enemies, right? They are opening investigations on nonprofit organizations that are potentially what they call anti-government, or they gave them this kind of list. So they are rogue. That's really what it is. And they are engaging in authoritarian fascist practices. And if you're not worried about that, you should be, because it starts with someone else. And then at some point it comes to our doorsteps. And we've seen this before in many other movement times, with COINTELPRO and the targeting of groups like the Black Panthers and many other groups at the time, civil liberties groups, even people like Dr. King. So we're just reliving a cycle, except with this particular administration, it's so overt. It's so in your face. They are not ashamed of being rogue agencies. You have ICE literally running around like they're the Gestapo in our communities. And it's been very hard for us to stop them in some of the cities. And I'm grateful to live in a city like New York, where we do have some safeguards against coordination with ICE. But as you know, sometimes even those safeguards are not able to kind of grain them in.
How can people tap into some of the work that you're leading with Next 250?
Just go to www.next250.us. We hope to see you in Washington, D.C. on June 27th at 11 a.m. And you can keep getting updates and information from www.next250.us.
Our thanks to Linda Sarsour for joining us here. Please come back again soon.
Thank you so much.
When we come forward, SoFi Stadium, the World Cup, and the workers who are asking some very important questions about who gets to profit and who gets protected. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. Thank you, Linda.
New York Knicks. Go New York Knicks.